All right, so the immediate question right now is a contradiction between the Alter Rebbe's beer and the way that Tzemach explained the Medrash. Namely, the Pasuk says, we say to Hashem, it's Pasuk in Shir Hashirim, Perek Ches, Mitencha ka'achli, halavai, that you should be, who would give you so that you would be like a brother to me. So we're asking the Eibusha to be like a brother to us. Then the Pasuk goes on to say, I will find you outside, I will kiss you, you will not despise me. So the Medrash explains, what are Yidden saying to the Eibusha to be like a brother? This Rashi is the Medrash, talking about the Medrash. So the Medrash is saying that be to us like a brother, like Yosef was to Binyamin. And not like Yosef to his brothers. Why? Because Yosef first pained his brothers before he was reconciled with them. They were accused, the whole story. We don't want that, but rather we want that you should forgive us without Yisurim. So it should be Yosef and Binyamin. That's not Tzemach Tzedek explains the Medrash. So we have one question we have to that is, but we're not, how do we make this comparison ourselves to Binyamin? The fact is we are like the brothers who sinned. That was one question. But the second question is this, and this is the immediate one, is the Alter Rebbe says on this pasuk. Okay, so according to the Tzemach Tzedek, and as he explains the Medrash, we're asking the Eibusha should be a brother like Yosef and Binyamin. The Alter Rebbe says that Hashem should be a brother, that's relationship of tzaddikim. In the second half of the pasuk, I'll find you outside, that's Bali Tshuva. Right? So it comes out the very simple contradiction that the first part of the pasuk is Avedis Tzadikim, yet the Tzemach Tzedek explained the Medrash that who's asking it? Not Bali Tzadikim, we're asking it. And we're asking they should be like Binyamin, and you shouldn't. It should be like Yosef and Binyamin, not Yosef and the brothers. You want the best of both worlds. We are like the brothers. We really sin. But we're asking Yosef, we're asking Hashem to deal with us like Yosef dealt with Binyamin, who was a tzaddik. We're asking to be dealt with like a tzaddik, even though we are not. That's how that's a Tzedek explains the Medrash. Deal with us like Yosef and Binyamin, be like that kind of brother, not like Yosef and his brothers, which is another Pirush. It's another Medrash which Rashi brings. Because you don't want Hashem to deal with us like Yosef dealt with the brothers. But before he was reconciled and forgave them, he made them regret. He made them suffer. That's how that Tzemach Tzedek again explains the Medrash on these words. But the Alter Rebbe says it's Avedis Tzadikim. Only the second half of the pasuk is Bali Tshuva. So how does it fit? How does it fit? That's why, according to the Alter Rebbe, this is the Tzaddik's path, the brother relationship. It's not the path of everybody else, of the Bali Tshuva. But according to the Tzemach Tzedek, it's in the Medrash, no, everybody, even the sinners asking, that's the basic question. Okay. So now up to Ois Hey, you have different, I posted the Maimer, it's on the chat, yeah? Pardon? We did already, yeah. Okay, so start to answer that. So summarize the first paragraph. He explains like this, introduces this whole idea that Yosef coming down to Mitzrayim. So it's explaining Chassidus that going down there, he made it easier, the whole golus easier. Because the whole purpose of the golus is to elevate all the sparks. And by Yosef going down there, he did that into great measure. And hence the whole golus was lessened, both in terms of years and intensity. The actually intense part of the golus where they were really slaves was only 86 years. There were 410 years. Hashem told Avraham 400 years in golus. The end, there were only 210. So it was reduced from 400 to 210, and the actual shibud that Abisha told Avraham, they'd be afflicted, and then I will redeem them, etc. The affliction was only the last 86 years. So why? This is all affected by Yosef. He gathered all of the money, etc. He elevated all of the sparks. The conclusion is that the Shvatim sold Yosef to Mitzrayim, fact, not only is this not contrary to the divine intent, on the contrary, this was a great service that Yosef going there before made the whole golus, the whole avodah a lot easier for Yidden subsequently. But they were not aware of that. So for them, that's considered a chet. That's what we're up to right now. As we said before, this maamer is like pieces, putting jigsaw puzzle. Eventually it all comes together. All right, so this was the beginning of Vayisei. Now we're continuing second paragraph of Vayisei. This is like a note, a parenthetic note. It's noteworthy. It would appear that Inyan Handal, we just said now, that Yosef's going down was basically a good thing. That Yosef going down to Mitzrayim was part of the divine intent. So this is, it would appear, not just Al Pi Chassidus. We explained that Al Pi Chassidus because he went down to elevate the sparks. But it's also true on a simple level. Gamla Bir Kamesha B'Pashtus. It's even on a simple level that it was a virtuous thing. Why? Shakavona Birida says that Mitzrayim Moishe, him going down to Mitzrayim was all B'Chdei Year Golus Mitzrayim. It's all part of the divine plan. There should be a Golus. It was a lead in the end to Golus Mitzrayim. Kedrashas Chazal ala Posuk, like Chazal said, Rashi brings this. And Yaakov sent Yosef from the valley of Hebron to find his brothers. And the whole story there. And that's when he ends up being sold. So Rashi brings from the Medrash, Hebron's not a valley. Hebron is an elevated place. Why is it called an Emek? Rashi brings from the Gemara that the meaning here is, the allusion here is that Yaakov sent Joseph from the depth of the one who is buried in Hebron, the Eitzah, to carry out, it was a way, a means to carry out the deep intent of the one buried there. That's Avram. Avram was buried in Hebron. Hashem told Avram, your children would be slaves. And so this is how the whole process is going to happen. Is Yaakov sending Yosef. So, and that precipitated again the Yidden going down to Mitzrayim and becoming slaves, which was part of the divine intent from the outset that the Abisha tells Avram. So even at the Pshat level, Yosef going down there is a positive thing. The difference between the Pshat level and the Bir al Chassidus that we just learned, that him going down there was not merely a means by which it set in motion a chain of events that led to the Yidden going down, but that Yosef himself is elevating the sparks. This he explains now. Ella, Shalif Bir is there, according to the Bir, the Pshat level, so selling Yosef to Mitzrayim, that sets in motion the whole Golos, that's in built Yerotzei. He's going to talk about that. Yeah, he's going to speak about that. So yeah. So, but the Pshat level, it's still Golos is Golos per se is something unsavory, undesirable. Even though at the pshat level, but it's leading to Matan Torah. The kavanah Golus Mitzrayim is b'chdei shadeze yiskul kabbalas haTorah. This will all lead to kabbalas haTorah. True, but still the events themselves are negative at the pshat level. The negative events that lead to a positive one. When you build your rotzi, but the golus itself is something that is undesirable per se. But however, the explanation we give up Chassidus adds a whole layer of depth. The fact that Yosef going down there in Mitzrayim, there's an avodah there in and of itself, not just a means for an end. He lightens the golus, and he's elevating the sparks. There's an avodah there, and it makes the golus subsequently later lighter. So, on the deeper level, selling him to Mitzrayim when you're rotzei. It's a positive thing, a welcome thing. Something good is happening right now. So he's just pointing out that at the pshat level, it leads to good. On a deeper level, it is good. So what's the chet again? As he said at the end of the previous paragraph, they didn't sell him for this intent. They weren't aware of this. They did so because they wanted to rid themselves of him. So therefore, it's a chet for them. But the pnimius, the whole thing is positive, not only because of the positive outcome in the end, but the avodah, Yosef being there was an avodah, elevating sparks and making the whole avodah of elevating the sparks lighter. So then he didn't go into Golus. The Golus is a much easier Golus. There in Mitzrayim. Not only is a means for Matan Torah later. Tzaddik a little bit still. It's still ultimately a means for an end. Even Berur in Tzutzis is a means for an end. But anyway, relatively speaking, we can appreciate it, although it doesn't stress it in the Maamar, that there was the avodah there. The avodah there, that Yosef was there and elevating the sparks. What he stresses is it makes the golus later easier. He still makes it a means for an end. But the kvetch is the golus. The Yidden are going to be there in Mitzrayim. And in this very Mitzrayim where Yosef is, it's lighter. Whereas the pshat level, this is terrible, it's going to lead later to Matan Torah. There's nothing redeeming about the present moment. And here there is. It's nuanced, but we can appreciate the difference, right? Between a means for an end totally or something virtuous in the process itself. So what this is going to answer, Rabbi said, in light of Chassidus, that what? That the actual him being in Golus itself is something virtuous. It'll explain an oddity in the story. Yosef said to the Shvatim, now, don't be sad, and don't be angry in your estimation, that you sold me, because God sent me before you to be a source of life. The question is, why is he comforting them? Then this is in the bigger picture, all sins. Now, what's coming now is one of the deepest in Yonim in Likutei Sichos. In all of Siddur, but in Likutei Sichos. And that is dealt with in the famous landmark watershed Sicha of Parshas Lech Lecha, Chelekei, if I'm not mistaken, it's Toshin Chafei. To go into all of the pratim, he sends us in the footnotes to the ha'aras over there, etc. It's a limud that's required on its own, and basically what it talks about is the basic kasha of the Sicha is a very innocuous, simple question. Lech Lecha is an aliyah. Simple meaning, go, he's ascending, he's going to Yisrael. And yet the whole parsha is Yerida. The whole parsha, she goes down to Mitzrayim, doesn't even stay in Mitzrayim, and Sarah is taken, etc., etc. So how could all this be part of a parsha that implies ascent? So this whole Moira de Kabir, that every descent, every even Aveda is mitzad hashgacha elyon, and there's a whole deeper beer there in Bechira. So where's the Bechira? And what's the Bechira? So it's a whole, again, Arichas, then the subject of much discussion. Pnimi Yisarotz and Chitzon Yisarotz and the three dargas of Bechira Atzmos. There's the external manifested will of Atzmos, do mitzvahs, which would compel a result, would leave no choice for any other option. There's the Pnimi Yisarotz that lasts for Bechira, but nonetheless, that's not the ultimate answer either. But only mitzvah Atzmos, is there, isn't there? Lo pashut. So I'm not going to even attempt now to go into this whole beer. But the bottom line of it, the Rabbi gives us here as a given. Even though this is actually Tavshin Chafal, if it could be that Tzich was said earlier. No. I remember it was Tavshin Chafei. Anyway, but the Tzich is based on sources, but still it's a tremendous solution there. Also based on the Maamar of the Fitik Rebbe Tavshin Ches. Anyway, let's continue. So what's the question we just asked now? We didn't ask the question yet. And he just said, so Yosef pacifies them. And the Rebbe's going to ask them, why is he pacifying them? What's the problem? Let's see the question. Again, all sins. Even though they are contrary to the divine will, it's all by his hashgacha, his providence, and his rotzen. Boom. Hora 35 sends us to, and Hora 36 to all these sources I just mentioned. So if it's why is the punishment? But at the end of the day, he's saying it is the Hashgacha Elyoina, it's Ritzoyna Yisbarach, he still had free choice. Whatever the explanation. As explained in many places here, he sends us to Kutesichus and the other sources. Divine providence, when it comes to Torah mitzvahs, doesn't contradict Bechira. You got free choice, it's still divine providence. Whatever the explanation. So since you have free choice, the sinner who hifsid this atzmai, from his perspective, he did something wrong. That's the Eibish's Geschäft. In the end, it'll be revealed that it is Ashgacha Pratis and the Ratzon Elyon. But right now, in the world of the person, he did something wrong. Quote quoting the Rambam about Tshuva. He should cry and bemoan, wail his sins. So the Rebbe is asking, they in their world which is real and true in emes, Bechira did the wrong thing in selling him. So why is he pacifying them? He says to them, don't be upset, don't be angry. Actually, that's we can ask him. First, he made them feel bad. He first did, then he says not. At any rate, but why should he even say that? That they feel bad in order to elicit tshuva. Leave it at that. Finished. Do tshuva. The reason why he says it is to bechol achatem all other averes. What he did right now is opposite Ratzon Elyon. There's no justification. The Eibush says, put on tefillin. He didn't. Keep Shabbos, whatever the chet is. Now, the Gamshim is even though that it's all Bashgach Elyon, Muchrech Lei Mishesh B'zeh Kavana. So we have to say there's a divine intent here. However, it's not the sin itself. What's the divine intent? Through the chet, he'll do tshuva. That's the basic answer of the h'tשכ elyon. The h'tשכ elyon, the good component is this will lead to tshuva. But the chatoim themselves are not. They're contrary to the divine will. And that's why, classically, not in this case, like the Rambam says, if a person has to cry and regret his sins, because right now it's wrong. And in fact, the only way you're going to redeem it is by regretting it. And then at the end, you do tshuva. No, h'tשכ pratis, it's all part of the divine plan. Look at the lofty level you arrived at, which you couldn't have without the sin. But the paradox is that the value of the chet is only emerges when you regret and renounce it. This is not the same case here by Yosef and the brothers. But here, that they sold him to Mitzrayim, here it's not just down the road it'll lead to something. It's not simply like every chet. What's the kavanah? You did something wrong, you're going to do tshuva, and you'll be elevated. Here, the present result, the current result, is something virtuous. As he told them, God sent me to be a source of life. And especially, as we said before, adding another component to the virtue of Yosef being there. He lightened the whole Golos by elevating the sparks. And that is a big chiddush now. A chiddush coming right now in the pshat, that the Birah Chassidus is hinted to in the pshat in the pasuk itself. Because of these words, that there is something virtuous in right now in Yosef being in Mitzrayim by elevating the sparks and lighting the Golos, is hinted in the words where he says, Hashem sent me before you, that you should become a remnant in the land and survive. The goal is going to break you, as it would, because I shouldered the brunt of it. So even at the pshat level, there's a hint to Yosef's easing the goals by being in Mitzrayim. So that's what's unique over here. Here, it's the Yosef being in the selling them itself, being in Mitzrayim. Here, there is a virtue in that itself, in him being there, not just in the tshuva, in the matzav of him being there and being a source of life and lighting the golos. Lachin. Therefore, he tells them in this case, al te'atzvu, don't be depressed. This is something unique. Ki mechartem saying that you sold me here, because it's not just about your tshuva. This itself is a good thing. Clear? However, there's still room to say, they could still be thinking that yes, so he was sent here and he became a source of life, but Yosef is suffering. He wasn't, for Yosef himself is something negative. Yosef adds even further to his brothers. He says to them, I'm ready to take your words. He appeases them to the degree, so much so, he removes all responsibility from them at the end, and he says, you didn't send me, Kelikim. The Eibishter did. And became this great leader by Pari, Moishe and a ruler over Mitzrayim. For me, he says, I'm seeing it for me and all of this, the hand of Hashem and the virtue of it. Now he adds in square brackets a medical thing. Although it's noteworthy to point out that Bemis, this is true of everything the person wrongs somebody else. In every case, not just in Yosef's case. In Yosef's case, it's transparent. It's clear, we can see it. Other times we don't, but it's also true. Look what he says. This is true of every wrong that a person does to his chaver. It's hard. That's what explains in Tanya. It's hard b'shluchim l'mokim. It didn't happen through you; it happened through somebody else. That's why he says in order 40, when Rebbe speaks about this, he says, and to learn from Yosef and his brothers, because that's begolui mamish, but it's true in every instance. Even if someone does to his fellow something which is the opposite of good, then he doesn't want to say bad. The opposite of good, this is coming him directly from Hashem. You have to hear this, you have to get this, you have to get this patch. And therefore he should not be angry with that person. And moreover, it's not just Hashem is punishing you. Hashem doesn't punish. Everything Hashem does per se, it's not you sinned, now suffer, hurt. No such thing. The point is, it's all for the good. Everything Yibshah does is for the good. So this itself is a cleansing, whatever the cheshbon is. It's something positive that you're experiencing, even though your friend had completely other intentions. The difference is, so he says it's true with all instances where someone wrongs somebody else. So what's the chiddush of Yosef? What's the difference? Yosef, it's revealed, and Yosef could tell them, look, you can see that Shgoch Elyon in this. Hashem sends me lemichya and all of the virtues, all of the positive effects of him being in Mitzrayim. But be'emes, be'pnimius, it's true of every instant. So what do you want with all of this? So it's all going to explain why we're asking, is the Medrash, we're focusing on the Medrash now, as opposed to Rashi's beer. Rashi says, Mitencha ka'ochli, we're asking like what? Yosef and Binyamin. But the Medrash is, we're asking Hashem should be with us. The Medrash is like Yosef and his brothers. I'm sorry, the other way. The other way. Yeah, that's the Medrash. We're asking. No. That's the Medrash. Going now to the. This is Rashi's Pirush, not Yosef and Binyamin. Let's go back there. Rashi said Yosef to Echav. And the Medrash is, Rashi is also from Medrash, so I was confused. Rashi is Yosef and his brothers, and the Medrash is Yosef and Binyamin. So now we're going to explain, we're zeroing in on the Medrash. That's the whole thing began, because the Alter Rebbe says it's a Vedet Tzadikim, it's Yosef and Binyamin. But that's a Tzadik's Pirush is, we're asking it to be like Binyamin, but we're not. That was our question. So he gave this whole explanation now to explain the whole inyan of Yosef and his brothers. Again, the Medrash is Yosef ben Yamin. So let's continue now. So now he's going to Yosef Echav, and who is that? That is Rashi. That's Rashi. So in light of in the fact that everything in Torah is absolutely precise, it's already 5:2. We'll just start the beginning. This we're asking, that the Abishur should be like a brother, like Yosef was to his brothers. And why would he want that? Even though they did something negative, he did to them only good. Who ki kol dava bilti rotzo ish adam vayse. Everything that a person does that is negative, who dugma sa'inyin shos hashvatim le Yosef shebachmur oisel Mitzrayim. It's a whole new thing coming now, a whole new layer. Is every Aveda is similar to the same model as what the brothers did by selling Yosef to Mitzrayim. And what's the request? As we'll explain, even though every sin we're causing the Eibush doing to him, similar to what the brothers did by selling Yosef, nonetheless, be kind to us as Yosef was with his brothers. Okay, so just a little bit clarity to be explained tomorrow. What's tomorrow? Friday? Okay, so we have to get this clear now, because this Pirush now that he's explaining now, that he should deal with us like Yosef and his brothers, that's Rashi. Even though he was just explaining in this last piece the Medrash, Yosef and Binyamin, but now he's explaining the Pirush according to Rashi, the Pshat Lev, which is also from Medrash, and what's going to come now out is, as we just said, every Aveda, it's a beautiful, incredible insight. Every Aveda, the model is what the brothers did to Yosef. And as we're going to see, it's not so much the Aveda. That's the big problem. We'll see. Okay. We'll continue Be'ez Hashem tomorrow.